All right, it is 6:16. I will call this meeting to order. If everybody would please stand, remove your hats for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, letter C, roll call, please.
Catherine Solon.
Here.
Abby Maddock.
Here.
Dr. Bardo.
Here.
Bobby Braun.
Here.
Jill Maddock Nelson. Kristen Matt Miller.
Here.
Scott Peterson.
Here.
JD Schrader.
Here.
Danny Pyatt.
Here. Okay, letter D is public comment. And before we jump into the public comment, I'll read the policy regarding public comment at board meetings. The presiding officer of each board meeting at which public comment is permitted shall administer the rules of the board for its conduct. The presiding officer shall be guided by the following rules. Public comment shall be permitted before the board takes official action on any issue of substance, such as items number 2 and number 4 on the agenda. Attendees must register their intention to comment in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. Comments made by the public shall be civil in content and tone, affirming the decorum established for a school board meeting by the school board. Disparaging comments, remarks about school board members, employees, students, positions or position titles, and/or district citizens shall not be made permitted. Comments by the public shall be in reference to a specific agenda item. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and will be requested to preface their comments by an announcement of their name and group affiliation if and when appropriate. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 5 minutes duration, which Dustin will have 5 minutes on the clock for each speaker. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. Participants shall address only topics within the legitimate jurisdiction of the board. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. The presiding officer may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Request any individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum. Request the assistance of law enforcement officers in the removal of a disorderly person when that person's conduct interferes with the orderly progress of the meeting. Call for a recess or an adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action. The portion of the meeting during which the comment of the public is invited shall be limited to 60 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. Reminder to the board members and speakers, this is not a conversation between the board and the person speaking at the microphone. The person at the microphone will be allotted their 5 minutes to speak, and we move to the next person who has signed up to speak. Recording, filming, or photographing the board's open meetings by third parties is permitted pursuant to state statute 19.90. The person operating the equipment should contact the district administrator prior to the board meeting to review possible placement of the equipment and must agree to abide by the following conditions. No obstructions are created between the board and the audience. No interviews are conducted in the meeting room while the board is in session. No commentary, adjustment of equipment, or positioning of operators is made that would distract either the board members of the audience or otherwise disrupt the meeting while the board is in session. And we do have a news channel that adhered to all of those rules, and we thank you very much for being here. Okay, having said the rules of the open meeting,
Danny,
come on in, folks.
do you mind, can we pull out the retirement resignations and put it on the agenda, take it out of the consent agenda?
We're not at
and move
consent
it up?
agenda yet.
But can we pull that out of it? Do we have to do that at the beginning of the meeting?
No, when we get to the consent agenda, we can pull that out, yes. Okay. Was there anybody else out there in the hallway? No? Okay. Okay, so the first person coming to speak, and if I mispronounce a name, please forgive me in advance, will be Chelsea Kubiak. Chelsea, when you come to the microphone, state the topic that you're going to be talking about so the board is aware that it is an alignment with a actionable item on the agenda.
Okay, my name is Chelsea Kubiacik, and I am talking about the consent agenda.
Okay, can we turn the mic up a little bit? And what portion is it on?
The resignations and retirement.
We'll make sure the clock's not started until it's time. Okay, to the board members, Chelsea's going to be talking about resignations on the consent agenda. Ready, Dustin? Okay.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Kubiacik. I graduated from Anigo High School this past May, and I'm also a proud graduate of North Central Technical College, where I earned my welding technical diploma. During my time in this district, I had the privilege of working with several outstanding CTE teachers, one being Mike Prizik. These teachers not only taught hands-on skills, but helped prepare students for real careers and real futures. I'm here tonight not just as a recent student, but as someone who deeply cares about the direction of our schools and about the responsibility of this board to serve its community with transparency, fairness, and accountability. There's a growing concern in our community, one I share, about the lack of transparency in what's happening with our CTE classes. As someone who benefited directly from those programs, I would like to know what changes are being made, why, and who's being included in these decisions. We've already seen proposed cuts to not only metals and machining, but also engineering, electronics, and media productions. Programs that provide essential technical and creative skills. CTE classes have changed lives in this district. They've helped students like me discover talents, build confidence, and walk out of high school career ready. When those classes are reduced or eliminated, it doesn't just hurt students, it also hurts local businesses. These programs are the reason many employers in our area have a pipeline of skilled, motivated, and prepared workers. If the board cuts these classes, the ripple of effects will hit our economy, our employers, and the future of our community. Local businesses have invested thousands of dollars into our metals and machining program because they believe in their value. For example, Don Wurst has donated over $30,000, and Waukesha Bearings has donated over $100,000 worth of machines and maintenance to support our technical education efforts. And as we found out on Friday, the Unified School District of Anigo has lost not just a skilled metals instructor, but an incredible advocate and mentor for students. Mike Privzik's dedication to hands-on learning, career readiness, and student growth went far beyond the classroom. He has shaped the last 5 years of my life. I know this truly was not what he wanted, but because of high school and administration's extremely poor decisions, this is the decision he had to make. I'm also deeply concerned with the lack of clarity around the number of teachers and staff being let go and retiring across the district. People deserve answers. Parents, students, and community members are left confused, frustrated, and afraid of what's next, and yet emails and phone calls to the school board members are often going unanswered. And today, to sit here and post what you posted on district's Facebook page is honestly laughable to a majority of people. You said, the district welcomes feedback from local businesses, but it's funny to say that when my own boss, Sarah Cruz, who is the HR manager at Waukesha Bearings, personally reached out with questions and concerns, and while she eventually received a response, it took over a week, and the response was extremely vague, and it left us with more questions than answers. It's hard to understand why you would feel the need to restructure the metals program when it was clearly thriving. The restructuring you'll be doing is going to be useless at this point without Mike Prizik, who you've driven to resign. It's unacceptable when elected officials don't respond to the public, when changes are made behind closed doors, and when lawful avenues of public input are restricted. That's not just poor governance, it's a failure of public trust. On top of that, I want to raise awareness to the board's public comment policies, which violates Wisconsin's open meetings law, specifically Wisconsin Statute 19.83, subsection 2. The law clearly states the subject matter on the comment period need not be limited to matters on the agenda, along with the Department of Justice compliance guide stating you can discuss any subject raised by a member of public. Yet the board's own policy says comments made by the public shall be in reference to a specific agenda item. This directly violates state law, it illegally limits public speech, and shuts down the important concerns that the board may not choose to put on the agenda, which is the opposite of how a democracy is supposed to work. The policy also uses vague language banning disparaging comments and limiting speech to the legitimate jurisdiction of the board with no clear definitions. That opens the door to unfair censorship, and it discourages honest public input. Not to mention, the amount of restrictions that are set violate our First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. On top of that, the agenda posting, according to your own board bylaw 132.1, meeting agendas must be posted at least 72 hours in advance, but that hasn't always happened. You've posted late, you've changed items last minute, or you've kept things vague, or keeping things vague limits the public. So tonight, I'm respectfully asking you guys to fix the public comment policy, to clarify behavioral standards in public comment without suppressing lawful speech, to ensure the agendas are posted at least 72 hours in advance per your own bylaw, to commit to responding to community emails and calls in a timely, respectful manner, to offer full transparency around CTE program changes, staffing decisions, and including opportunities for public discussion. As a former student, I'm proud of where I came from, but we can't build strong schools without a school board that listens, responds, and follows the law. Anigo deserves better, the students deserve better, we all deserve better, and we're asking you to lead the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. I do want to make mention that though that you mentioned a staff member who is resigning, that staff member's resignation letter is not on this agenda. So we cannot speak about that staff member's resignation, nor can we speak about the CTE department. I will stop any further public comment if those two items come up in the public speaking portion. I will also let you know that we are reviewing with our attorneys our public comment policy as we speak right now. Okay. The next speaker is Nicole Kubiak. I'm so sorry.
Danny, so if the resignation letter is attached, isn't that make it reasonably related to the agenda item?
It's not attached.
I looked at it on board docs this morning.
It was
is
this afternoon
not.
on there as well.
It is not on the agenda at this time. Nicole, you may speak. And what are you speaking toward?
I'm speaking about resignations on the consent agenda.
Okay. Nicole is speaking about resignations on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I want to take a couple of seconds to say how proud I am of my daughter, Chelsea Kubiacek. This is a girl that 5 years ago, never in a million years would have come and talked to you, and I want to cry just thinking about it, but I'm going to try to keep my composure here because I have words to say. Good evening, school board members. My name is Nicole Kubiacek. You may remember my visit last month giving recognition and appreciation to Mike Parizek. Can I talk about a little bit?
No, you cannot,
Okay.
because he is not on the agenda.
All right. And the impact he had on my daughter, Chelsea, a recent graduate of Anigo High School. Today, I'm here to speak to you, our elected board members, about the extensive list of resignations that were included in this month's school board meeting. As elected board members, each of you maintains responsibility. Each of you is elected by citizens of our school district to help shape the educational landscape of our community here. Your job is to provide vision and goals for the school district, adopt policies that guide the operations of schools, and ensure positive student achievements and district performance. As school board members, you are to serve as liaisons between the school district and the community, representing the interests of residents, communicate district needs and decisions to the public, and advocate for the public education at the local, state, and federal levels. Wisconsin statutes grant you the authority to manage the school district affairs, including district property, finances, setting curriculum standards and educational goals, and hiring and evaluating the district administrator superintendent. Are you aware that since July of 2023, over 175 employees of the Unified School District of Anigo have left? I'll say that again, over 175 people in 2 years. I hope that statistic sounds as alarming to you as it did to me when I first heard it. There is something not right going on in our school district, and it's time for you, our elected board members, to start asking questions. You made promises when you were campaigning for the chairs you're sitting in right now. Today, you have responsibilities and expectations as board members to serve the community that elected you. I was recently made aware that members and business members of our community reached out to you, our elected board members, to share concerns, and there were no responses from any of the board members. I don't understand how you, as elected board members, whose responsibility is to serve as the liaison between the school district and community in representing the interests of the residents, do not respond to inquiries of the community. Since my last visit here addressing the board, I have been inundated with phone calls, messages, and in-person conversations by past Antigo School District employees sharing with me the atrocious behavior they endured while employed the last months of their employment here. I was embarrassed, disgusted, and heartbroken by the fact that the people who are here to teach our children and help mold them into being strong and productive members of our community are being bullied, disregarded, and belittled. I've spoken with some district employees who have said they have no choice but to stay here because of ties into the community, and these people are scared. They fear for retaliation if they speak up. In no business, especially in education, should this type of behavior be tolerated. In closing, I ask each of you elected school board members, Abby, Catherine, Bobby, Kristen, Danny, Scott, JD, and Dave. When you go home tonight, I want you to reflect upon my words here today, your responsibilities as elected school board members in shaping our children's future, and the golden rule, treat others as you would like to be treated. Our district employees deserve to be treated fairly and just. You owe it not only to them, but to the children and the community you represent. Remember my statistic about resignations since July of 2023? That is also when Ms. Oginski became district administrator. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And yes, your daughter did a great job. Number 3 is Sarah Cruz. Sarah, you are speaking toward.
I am speaking towards 2, approval of agenda, or 3.D, curriculum and instruction.
Okay, you may begin.
Okay. My name is Sarah Cruz. I'm speaking tonight as a local business leader, a youth soccer coach, and a mother of 3 wonderful children, and a deeply invested member of this community.
Sarah, let me pause. Dustin, stop that for just one moment. Number 3 is not actionable items, so you cannot speak to number 3.
But
okay?
I can speak to number 2?
You can speak to number 2. Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
Did you lose any time?
I wasn't looking.
2 seconds?
Okay.
Thank you. Dustin will keep track of that, 2 seconds.
Perfect. My concern tonight specifically is the lack of transparency, collaboration, and responsiveness in how these changes have been handled. I have attempted to set up meetings with the school board, the district administration, through multiple avenues to discuss what adjustments were being made to classes. The response I received was to organize a meeting myself. I am not the director of curriculum or the business services. I don't have the ability to convey a board meeting or a district leadership meeting. I can and will bring the businesses and the community partners together, but that can only be one-sided. There is no partnership, no collaboration, and no transparency from your side. The district must step up and coordinate and engage and not push that responsibility back on the very people that are asking for collaboration. A few hours before this meeting, a public Facebook post was made stating that all programs, including the metals and machining programs, were still available. The message directly contradicts what I have been told through email and what is reflected in the current schedule. This community is ready to be part of the solution. My company has already donated between 6 and 8 machines to the metal lab in the last 2.5 years. The resources now may go unused, and shifting the courses availability and the legal age restrictions will do that. They will sit there and rust. These are not abstract concerns. These are decisions with real-life consequences for our students and our economy. The foundation of my workforce is built on Anago High School graduates who came through these supportive youth apprenticeship programs and the CTE program. Over 70% of my workforce came through that exact pipeline. We didn't just hire them, they were trained and we promoted them. They built careers within our economy here locally. These programs work, but they only work when they're supported, they're promoted, and they're protected. When these courses are not offered, students cannot select them. And when they cannot select them, they lose the access to the hands-on experience to build both technical and professional skills that the workforce desperately needs. You saw Chelsea, she's 17 years old. That's amazing to have in an admin intern. These cuts aren't just inconvenient, they're eroding the talent pipeline for our local economy. The idea that recent changes are solely based on student interest ignores a deeper root cause. Declining the enrollment may just be a symptom, not a cause. They don't foster interest and it drives the students away. It does not have to be this way. If the district truly values the community partnership, now is the time to demonstrate it with transparency, consistency, and shared responsibility. We want to work with you, not against you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Corbin Schrepfer. And Corbin, you are speaking toward,
The resignations.
thank you, sir. You may begin.
Hello, my name is Corbin Schrepfer. I am serving as the president of the Anago FFA. My advisor is Shalyn Domke. As the president of the FFA, I feel it is my duty to talk about matters that may affect one or many of its members, alumni, and supporters, some of which are seating behind me as former officers, alumni, and supporters. Last week, it was brought to my attention that a longtime supporter and friend of the FFA, a former staff who will not be named, has resigned from his position. This staff was more than just a teacher, a friend, and a helping hand. He was a major supporter, and he came in very useful to all the students and staff. There was times where I would come in and find him helping my advisor. He drove the bus for us to many events, and I've never heard him say no to anything that anybody has ever needed. He was selected as an honorary member, and while there are things I love to get into, I only have 5 minutes. Now, speaking as a student, this staff has affected me in so many ways. This year, my family farm sold their milking cows, and it was a stab right through me. I really thought about the ways I could get out of school the next day, because it was on a Wednesday, and that Thursday morning when I woke up, I told my mom I didn't want to go, and she made me. The first class of my day was with this teacher, and the first face I saw was him. I still remember he was the first person to ask me how I was doing, and he continued to check up on me all week, which meant more to me than he will ever know. He was always smiling no matter how rough his day was, and never failed to say good morning to any student that walked by. He impacted the lives of so many students by just standing there. The classes he led set people up for success in many ways, whether it was working in the community or moving on to higher education. As a personal point, helped me get into the position I am in. Next year, I will be doing an apprenticeship with a welding facility just north of Anago. I would have never found my love for metalworking, and I would never be nearly the welder I am today without his guidance. The man that you guys lost to the teacher will never be one you will be able to replace no matter how hard you try. With going forward, I ask you, the board and administration, to strongly reevaluate your decision or the direction you are steering this district in, and really start to listen to your parents, community members who ultimately support the district, and past, present, and future students as to what we would like in our education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cherie Olson. Cherie, is it Cherie or is it Sherry?
No, it's
Cherie, thank you. Cherie, and what are you speaking toward?
I am speaking towards termination resignation.
Number 2?
Yes,
Thank you, you may begin.
okay. I am reading this letter on behalf of Sarah Wickersheim as she is unable to be here tonight, and I would like to speak to her recent resignation from the Unified School District of Vandago. Good evening. On May 27th, I formally submitted my resignation from my position as an early childhood special education teacher, a role that I've held for 7 years. While every position has its challenges, the last 2 years has had a significant impact to my mental and physical well-being. The 24-25 school year in particular was extremely difficult and ultimately led to pursue other opportunities in the district. When I join a district, my intent is always to stay long-term initially through retirement. Unfortunately, that was not the case. The experiences I endured, what I witnessed, overheard, and treatment I received did not reflect the support of a professional environment. Being threatened in front of other coworkers to be written up for not following a directive is far from constructive criticism or being supportive and proactive with an employee. This year, I encourage unprecedented barriers in advocating for my students. For the first time, I wrote a 6-page justification for one-on-one support and had to fight harder than ever to secure essential services. When an additional adult support for another student was requested by myself, the team, the parents, the proposed solution was to relocate the student to a different school for self-contained instruction, not because it was in the best interest of the child, due to staffing limitations. We refused to allow such disruptive decisions, especially when transitions were a known trigger for the student. The lack of sympathetic support for our highest needs students is deeply concerning. It is our duty to build strong early foundations with the right support and interventions. Hearing statements like this district has too many one-on-ones and this needs to change contradicts our legal ethical responsibilities. Every IEP should be built around the needs of our students, and if adult support is necessary, it should be provided. Another serious concern is the integrity of our initial evaluation process. We are bound by a clear statewide timeline. Consent must be obtained within 15 days of a referral, evaluations completed within 60 days. I was informed on April 6th, birth-to-free 3 referrals would be coming in. In addition to the 6 that came in, 2 parent referrals, making a total of 8 evaluations. By May 1st, I was directed to complete all by the end of May 27th. The time frame was simply unrealistic. I was told to review records, do an observation, and make a decision, or face disciplinary action. I was told that wasn't unethical, that I just held too high of standards, but I will continue to hold these standards because they are what students and families deserve and the law requires. Previously, I had been allowed to work over the summer to complete evaluations thoroughly. This year, I was told that was no longer permitted, a cost savings measure, apparently to fund benefits and compensation. Yet my 26 contract didn't even reflect a $1,000 raise, and new hires were being paid over $5,000 more similar roles with no license. I do not teach for money, but such disparities are disheartening. There is little transparency about how salary placement decisions were made, and it seems my consistent, strong evaluations were not considered, as well as my 18 years in education, which included a master's in early childhood education. But then again, transparency doesn't seem to exist here. Throughout my time in this role, I have prioritized building strong, trusting relationships with students, their families, the community partners who support them. I believe that meaningful collaboration and open communication are essential in creating supportive and inclusive educational environments. By working closely with families and external providers, I've been able to better understand each child's unique needs and ensure consistency across settings, ultimately leading to more effective support and greater student success. This is what I'm going to miss about working for the Unified School District of Vandago, but I know these relationships will continue to grow outside of working for this district. I also feel compelled to speak in the way Anita Maddock has been treated throughout the school year. I have personally witnessed and overheard situations that were uncalled for and unprofessional. Despite this, Anita has consistently gone above and beyond her role, building strong relationships with students, families, staff, and always advocating for her support and her team. Her dedication and leadership deserves recognition and respect, not the condemnation she has unjustly received. I'll stop.
Thank you, Cherie. Our next speaker is Darcy Washotko. Did I say your name correctly?
You did.
Thank you. And you are speaking toward
Resignations.
resignations. You may begin.
Hello, my name is Darcy Washako, and I've had the honor of serving as a special ed teacher in this district for the past 18 years, and I've always considered it my mission to advocate for our students. This spring, I made the difficult decision to resign, not because I no longer believe in the power of public education, but because the environment became so toxic, disorganized, and unsupportive that I could no longer do my job ethically or effectively. Let me walk you through what has happened. Because this is not just about teachers leaving, it's about a system that is failing. When 2 special ed teachers resigned earlier in the year, the remaining staff were assured that our only additional responsibility would be the special ed paperwork, which is already a monumental task. But on the very first day, there were no substitutes in the team-taught geometry or biology classes. There was no adult at all in the geometry resource class, leaving those students completely unattended. On the second day, a student came looking for me because, once again, no adult was present. On the third day, still seeing no names on the sub-list, I went to Mrs. Verhagen myself to request help, something that I shouldn't have had to do because we were told this would be handled by Mrs. Borneman. Weeks went by without supporting key instructional classes. This wasn't just a logistical failure, it was a violation of our students' rights. One autistic student, whose IEP specifically included team-taught classes, became extremely anxious. He reached out to Mrs. Borneman, emailing for help. Here is a section of that email as it was written. I was wondering when you will get someone in my math to help me. I feel very hopeless in succeeding in my education, and I have no one now to get extra help. And today I got a worksheet today. I didn't know what to do. I keep on looking at my paper, and my brain felt like it was going to explode from being very overwhelmed. And I was hoping to see if you can find someone to help me and the other kids so we can succeed in math, so I don't have to feel overwhelmed and stressed out. And I very stress out whenever I look at my math paper every day, and it makes my anxiety go up every time. I hope you find out soon. Thanks for reading. Mrs. Borneman never responded to that student. When I asked Ms. Wagner
Please
what
be
the...
cautious of disparaging comments.
Sorry. When I asked Ms. Wagner what the plan was, I was told a letter was going out to the parents of caseload students, but no such letter was ever sent to the parents of students in team-taught classes. That means those IEPs were not just unsupported, they were out of federal compliance. During the same time, our responsibilities ballooned. We took on more students and more behavior management. We welcomed students from other districts and even some out of state, which required new evaluations, new testing, new meetings, and an overwhelming amount of paperwork. Let's talk caseloads. I reached out to neighboring districts for comparison. Rhinelander High School average caseload was 13, Wittenberg 15, Wausau West 15, unless students had behavioral or emotional needs, which then it was reduced to 13. I had 25 on my caseload. My coworker had 27. Both of our caseloads had students with significant behavioral and emotional needs. We tried to speak up and ask for some type of compensation. We emailed Glenda multiple times. Most of those emails were left unanswered. When we finally did hear back, we were told she would talk to Kelly and Deb about it. Weeks later, when I followed up again, she told me, I don't know who told you that you would be compensated. And scheduling, another area we once had structuring and efficiency, became a mess. For 15 years, Mrs. Arlen and I had access to adjust schedules to ensure IEP compliance each semester, well in advance. This year, that access was taken away. When I tried to offer advice or corrections related to IEPs, I was reprimanded. At one point, I reached out to Amy Stutstream to confirm a scheduling detail. When I brought that information back to my administrator, she yelled at me in front of my colleagues and accused me of getting her in trouble at central office. Later in the year, we were blind carbon copied about spreading rumors in our department from our building administrator. The bullying and controlling behavior created a hostile work environment. I didn't want to leave my students, but I didn't want to continue in a workplace that refused to support its staff and repeatedly put compliance, integrity, and students' needs at risk. Now here's the most sobering part. 2 years ago, our high school had 9 special ed teachers. Next year, they're down to 2. If that isn't a wake-up call, I don't know what is. This isn't sustainable, and it's not ethical, and it's certainly not legal in many cases. The system is broken, and our most vulnerable learners are paying the price. I'm not here tonight out of bitterness, but out of heartbreak. I love this profession, and I love the kids. But our district is at a breaking point, and if we don't take action, if we don't rebuild trust, improve communication, transparency, and follow through on our legal and moral obligations, more staff will leave and more students will suffer. Our kids deserve better, our staff deserves better, and this community deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Our next speaker is Megan Murphy. Megan, and what are you speaking toward?
Well, for a change of pace, I'm going to be speaking about the CISA 9 contracts.
Thank you. You can start.
So, I took a look at last year's contract as well as what I know of the district and looked at what is being proposed for this contract. And I am here to highly encourage you to take a hard look at some of those special education services and whether this district will be adequately served for our most vulnerable students. For example, in the past, this district had 7 speech and language pathologists. You have 1 remaining within the district, with only 3 coming from CISA 9 as proposed for next year. That would leave you with 4. Now, I understand declining enrollment, but I also know that your special ed numbers are not declining, which means more than likely you still need at least 6. So, I want you to maybe consider questioning what caseload sizes would be like for positions like speech and language. How many evaluations would your school psychologists be doing in those 150 some days that are proposed? I also encourage you to question why occupational therapy is not included on that list. This year, many of the students in the district did not receive their full occupational therapy services, and those minutes need to be made up. The parents were not fully informed of which minutes were missed and when, and I would like you to consider that there is a state statute that is PI 11.249B. This regulates how many students can be on an occupational therapist caseload. By the way, it's a maximum of 30 students unless you hire a CODA or an assistant. It's a certified occupational therapy assistant, and then you can have up to 45. However, I know more than likely you're sitting somewhere between 60 and 70 students on a caseload for an occupational therapist. So 1 is not going to be enough, but 1 is not sitting on your CISA 9 contract. I know that there are rumors that 1 has been hired, but in reviewing the board documents, I have not seen that come across for approval to the board. I'm greatly concerned about the services that the students in this district will be receiving, and that we will continue to not fulfill their IEPs, and there will be continued pushback from parents, and that these parents shouldn't have to be filing complaints with the state. We should be doing what's right for them. So please, I encourage you to question what the caseloads are like and whether or not we are actually fulfilling the minutes in these IEPs and how we plan to make up the minutes we have missed. Thank you.
Megan, I have a question. What was that state statute? I want to make sure I wrote it down properly.
Can I share it?
Is it PI 11?
PI 11.249B.
PI 11.249B. Okay. Thank you, Megan. Our next speaker is Lori Flannery. And Lori, you are speaking toward
2.
item number 2.
Item 2.
Okay, you may begin.
Good evening. My name is Lori Flannery, and I would like to address the board tonight on items related to 2. I'm a former teacher of the Antigo School District, where I taught for all 34 years of my career and feel great pride in that. I am also a parent of children who graduated from this district, a grandparent of Antigo students, and a concerned community member. My concern has been growing as I witness the high number of teachers and district employees leaving Antigo. Since June of 2023, under our new administration, the district has had over 170 district employees retire or resign their positions. In response to this, I would like to ask the board to communicate with the public what their vision is for the school district and their reasoning in making academic, financial, and employment decisions that they are making. I am concerned that the low morale, large number of retirees, and resignations has negatively impacted our students' growth and success. Continuity and pride in our district from employees is at an all-time low. To make matters worse, the number of education graduates to choose from is declining. Unqualified people are finding themselves in roles that they aren't prepared for, such as substitute teachers, support staff, and in temporary teaching positions. I myself retired earlier than I originally had planned on. I felt that the lack of support from administration was hard to overcome. I hadn't, at that point, used a sick day in over 20-plus years, but if needed, I was trusted or allowed to leave early for an appointment if it was after my students were secure. The year before I retired, I was told by administration that I could not leave until my contracted time was reached. I saw this as a lack of support and trust, so I started to make my appointments during the day and use sick days as I had no choice. More and more of my time was spent on the computer, documenting disciplinary actions, updating my learning plan, parent contacts, and less teaching students. Curriculum was constantly changing, a kind of revolving door. At one point, we were purchasing a new reading curriculum and were told to get rid of everything else. In doing so, I found a 1997 copy of the identical curriculum we were buying and was told to throw it out. One time, I witnessed a teacher so stressed out by lack of support with unruly students that they literally sat in their car and cried over their lunch break. I encouraged this person that they were making a positive impact, even if they didn't realize it. This person was so distraught they were considering leaving the district and teaching. This was 6 years ago, and I still have friends and contacts within the districts, and with conversations with them, it is apparent that these same frustrations exist and are only getting worse today. In conclusion, I am hoping the board can give the parents, teachers, and community members a plan that shows their vision for making this district a place where teachers and their families want to stay, a plan that makes them want to become invested members of this community, a plan to make new graduating teachers interested in coming to and staying in Antigo, a plan to make Antigo a place where people talk about being a great place to raise and educate their children, a place where people aren't choosing to homeschool or enroll in private schools mainly because they don't feel the public school is a safe and healthy fit for their children. The bottom line, as member of the school board, ask yourselves, is this administration making decisions that are resulting in a positive impact on the culture and climate in Antigo? Because if it was, staff retention would be higher. Student enrollment in private schools would be not increasing. Does the district's vision center on what's best for students, not on what is easiest for the administration to manage? Now is the time for the school board to identify and communicate their vision for improving culture. The community has answered the referendum need for a new elementary school, and they deserve a school board and administrative team that makes decisions that provide the best educational experience for all students in the Antigo Unified School District. I take you for your time and look forward to your response.
Thank you, Laura. Our next speaker is Ingrid Bussey. Hi, Ingrid, and you are speaking to Ward.
I am speaking on resignations.
You may begin.
Thank you. As I was looking over the agenda for today, I was really heartbroken. I haven't even told my son yet that Mr. Knetter was on that list, and he's the reason why he wants to take pre-cal. He was all excited about having him. We need to ask the question is, why are so many people leaving, especially special education teachers? And what do we do to prevent this? Nobody's asking those questions. We're not being heard, and it's really extremely frustrating. Teachers are frequently written up for small things that I can't even believe they're getting written up for. And many of those teachers who were written up are not getting a pay increase next year because of that, which is completely unfair. Communication is poor. We don't know what's going on. Changes are happening all the time, effective immediately, and it's really confusing and frustrating for us. I know I spoke at the other board meeting about the insurance was suddenly canceled effective immediately for resigning teachers. It was initially going to be retirees, and people resigning would get that a month earlier. It would end the end of May. That you guys changed that, which I appreciate for the retirees, but my insurance was cut a month short, and I had plans. I had to reschedule stuff because I had planned to be out in June because I didn't want to take that time away. Then on May 15th, we were informed, retirees and those resigning, that our dental insurance was canceled effective 12 days later. That caused extreme stress. I ended up having complications for my dental care, and I ended up having to take unpaid time for 3 hours. I contacted the superintendent because I was down to personal days, and I had to get that cleared through her, and she never returned my messages. So right now, it's hard for me and other teachers to trust the school district when we make those changes so quickly. Also, we don't actually know what's going on for next year. I was talking to a teacher the last day, and he's like, I have no idea what classes I'm teaching. And that is really frustrating as a parent. My kid is going to the school district as a high school, is going to be a junior next year, and I honestly am questioning whether I should
Speak to resignations.
Oh, okay. Well, I am talking about that because that is one of the reasons. Okay. But the problem we're having is because a lot of our teachers who teach elective classes are resigning. Actually, they were not renewed, first of all. So they will not be returning. The opportunities from these teachers that we're going to be missing, that my kid will be missing, are huge. And that doesn't make me confident as a teacher to back up the school district, and especially it doesn't make me think highly as far as the education my child is getting. We didn't have enough electives, you guys, last year. I don't know if you're aware of this, but we were making up classes because a lot of our special education students have limited times because of supported classes and interventions that they need. And so we made up a Skills for Living class. We had to make up a few of those. And that teacher, though, is not rehired for next year. So I don't know what we're going to do because there's no way we can give these kids what they need with the amount of people retiring. There is no way to fill all of these positions, especially special ed. And that's the reason this job has taken a huge toll on me, you guys. I've been really sick. I'm just thankful, honestly, that Trina and Kelly Fassbender have been really good to me this year and really worked with me, and I appreciate that. I am not feeling that from other people in the school district, and I just cannot continue to do it. There's other people. The amount of people that have had health problems this year is astronomical, and it's because of the stress we're under. So I just want you guys to consider, I want you to think, what can we do to really retain teachers? That's what I want everyone to really look at. And just upping the pay for new teachers is not going to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. Our final speaker is George Shenners. As long as you're speaking to an actionable item, Mr. Shenners, you can speak.
When I went to sign up, George Shenners,
And you're speaking toward,
I was told I could not because it was not on the agenda.
okay, thank you, Mr. Shenners.
I've been trying for 2 weeks to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Shenners. This concludes our public comment. Thank you, Mr. Shenners. Item number 2, consent agenda. Approval of agenda, minutes, financial reports, report of district new hires, district retirement, and resignation report. I will be looking for a motion.
Can we pull out the retirement and reservations, please, so we can talk about it? But if we, it's gonna go at the, can it come at the beginning, right now? Or does it go at the very end?
It would go to the end of the meeting, yes. Would you like to pull it out and put it toward the end of the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. If there's no objection from any of the board members, we'll pull out the retirements of this consent agenda, and we'll put it as letter,
And the resignations, both.
okay.
One thing.
And we will put that as letter I under board action. Okay, I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the agenda minutes from May 19th, 2025 Board of Education meeting, minutes from the June 9th, 2025 HR Finance and CPT Committee meetings, financial reports for May 2025 and June 2025, consideration of current bills, checks number 8933 through 9053 at the amount of $853,436.70. ACHs 202400213 through 202400237 and the amount of $14,656.46, and wire transfers number 24251,485 through 242501680 and the amount of $1,082,189.88 for a total of $1,950,283.04.
Motion has been made by Kristen. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I need to abstain from number 242501534 and 242501485.
What was the last four of the first one?
1534.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Dr. Barto?
I need to abstain, and I'll just use the last four, 1505 and 1586.
Deanna, let the record reflect that I will also abstain from check number 1564 and 1641. Any other questions or discussion?
I would like to talk about the new hire document.
Wait just 1 second. The new hires and resignations will be taken up at the end of the meeting.
Okay, I didn't know that that was moving too.
Yes, JD, you were correct in the new hires and
Sure. Can we talk about it now if we didn't? I said retirements and resignations.
You did say retirements and resignations, so yes, Abby, you may speak toward the new hires.
Okay, so first of all, I'm excited that we have 5 people that potentially will be here on the first day of school. We know that there's a lot of other districts out there looking for them. But it is very disconcerting that 4 of the 5 interviews, the committee was only made up of Ms. Stutstream and Ms. Oginski, no one else. And I know that staff members requested to be on those interview committees, and I'm curious why they were denied that. The instructional coach had almost the whole team there, which is amazing. I don't know who answers my question.
I'm waiting for Mrs. Oginski because she is on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So the reason that Ms. Stutstream and I conducted those interviews was because as soon as we had qualified licensed applicants, it was easier for the 2 of us to coordinate our schedules to get the interviews and the questions and the background checks done. So it was out of efficiency.
Okay, so there's two art teachers that are on this list, and I know the only remaining art teacher asked several times to be on it, and you said, yeah, we'll let you know, and she was not.
I will not speak to personnel issues with you in a public meeting, but I would be happy to discuss that further. During
I would like to point out that I did not name a name.
There's only one remaining art teacher in the district.
You're right.
Okay, any other questions or comments of the motion on the floor?
Do I need to amend my motion that, because it doesn't say new hires in the, unless I'm reading it and not seeing it. I just don't think it's written correctly.
You are correct,
Okay.
Kristen, you can,
I would like to amend the motion to add approval of new hires as well, just at the end.
okay, we have an amendment of the motion of making the addition at the end of approving all new hires on the report. Correct?
Yes.
We must direct all of our discussion, questions, and comments about the amendment of the motion of adding all new hires. Are there any questions or discussion of that amendment? Deanna, did you get that amendment for the reflection?
Yes.
Okay, we will be voting on the amendment, which is to add to the end, in addition to all of the new hires on the report. That is what we're voting on. Once this is voted upon, if it is passed, it will become the main motion. If it fails, we'll go back to the main motion. Does everybody understand how you're voting and what you're voting for? Okay, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? All right, the vote is now closed. And the amendment passes. That now becomes the main motion. Is there any other discussion or questions of the main motion on the floor? Hearing no questions of the main motion on the floor, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? Vote is now closed, and that motion carries. We will move on to item number 3, administration reports. Mrs. Oginski.
So our first report is by Mrs. Bosbender with Business Services. Her report is attached, and Mrs. Bosbender is present if anyone has questions.
JD.
Kelly, can you talk about how we decided not to give raises to any teacher who got reprimanded? I know we never talked about it at the board level, but maybe that's something that we have to revisit since we're losing so much staff.
In the monthly budget update, I don't know if that applies.
That actually doesn't apply in the monthly budget update. Hold on to that for the preliminary budget, JD. Okay, letter B.
Okay, item B, pupil services and special education report. Ms. Wagner is present if there are any questions.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I think this is amazing that we're going back to a mental health navigator. It's something that we desperately need in this district.
Item C, buildings and grounds. Mr. Leiderman is present. His report is attached if anyone has questions. Item D, curriculum and instruction. Ms. Stutzring has a brief shout out that she's going to share with us regarding student achievement in the Antigo School District. Ms. Stutzring.
So we just wanted to celebrate and congratulate the Annabelle Middle School, all of the staff, the students, admin, all of the families for being named the 2023-24 Wisconsin School of Recognition by the Wisconsin DPI. This was a program that was established many years ago, and it was actually canceled during the COVID-19 kind of time, and they brought it back because they think it's important. When I spoke to DPI, they said it's important for schools to be recognized for their work and the impact on student achievement when they're making a significant contribution to move that achievement in a positive way. So our middle school was recognized as a high impact So there's some criteria around that, around Title I funding, meeting the expectations and exceeding them on the school report card, not being identified or targeted support, being above the 20th percentile, 20% statewide for absenteeism and achievement, and meets or exceeds 95% of the test participation across all students. So a celebration for our families and our students and our staff, the hardworking staff at the middle school. Being honored and recognized this way is an achievement recognized by DPI, but by us in the community as well. So congratulations goes out to the amazing middle school and the work that they're doing there.
Heather and Teal, stand up, let everybody give you an applause for all of your hard work. This is for your staff too. For your staff, yes. I know that Heather and Teal run a great team there at the middle school, and the staff deserve that appreciation and that recognition because they do an outstanding job there at the middle school. So please convey that to all the staff members.
Okay. Item E, the technology report is attached, and Mrs. Mushak will speak to that briefly as to include an update since our committee work. Mrs. Mushak?
Yes, so I just wanted to point out, we had one committee level item that we ended up moving to just my technology board report. We had some quotes coming in hot off the press as it relates to the Aruba renewal, and that one actually came in under 10 grand. So we moved that as a just informational item as opposed to an approval item because it ended up being less. So following board policy by getting those three quotes actually afforded us the opportunity to save some money fiscally on that renewal as compared to last year. So I just wanted to point out so there wasn't confusion. The Aruba renewal is now an informational item as opposed to a action item due to the strong negotiations that we had for this renewal. Any other questions?
I just want to point out that I'm very excited about all of your research that you did about the library design for the new school. Obviously, former librarian here. But it's very future forward, very much talking about how it's going to be the hub of the school, which is all that we want. And I'm sure your amazing team of librarians helped you out with that too. So I'm excited to see the blueprints whenever we see the rest of the school.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Okay, and next is the superintendent report is attached. So a reminder to the public that central office is closed on Friday as we have started our summer hours. Those began on June 9th. As a district administrative team, we've been working diligently to establish clear and consistent onboarding processes to ensure new staff are properly equipped with access to technology, facilities, and curriculum resources. This work especially critical as Ms. Stutzring, Ms. Mushak, and Mrs. Hosbender prepare for new teacher orientation in August. And in parallel, we're also applying similar processes to support a smooth transition for staff who are retiring or resigning from the district. So we've spent quite a bit of time working on that, and that's not something that's just happened recently, but over the past couple of years, we have been putting things in place to try to make create a system. Next, the administrative team and staff and I have been actively engaged in interviews and working to secure hires for the upcoming 25-26 school year, as I stated earlier. Ms. Stutzring and I have done some of those interviews with just the two of us. Both of us have been former principals and long-standing teachers, so we feel like we're pretty well equipped to be able to conduct some interviews on our own and to be efficient with resources. Our social media was established as a way to showcase students' success and for the district to communicate key information to our families and community. So disabling the comments doesn't deter or distract us from having that ability to still do that. And next, in securing signed contracts early this year, we have been able to shift our focus towards filling vacant positions. I'm pleased to share that the district is in a strong position, currently experiencing fewer open positions than we have had at this point in the hiring cycle since the summer of '23. Our applicant pools have been highly competitive, with some positions such as social studies attracting as many as 35 applicants. And next, a huge celebration and a follow-up to what Ms. Stutzring shared, and shout out to our middle school. The award they earned recognizes schools that demonstrate exemplary dedication to student growth and achievement. The Antigo Middle School received the award of a high impact category based on rigorous criteria, including academic performance, measurable progress, and student growth, or graduation rates, and efforts to reduce achievement gaps, particularly for students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. Due to the significant academic achievement over the past 2 years, particularly among those students identified as economically disadvantaged, our middle school was selected for this prestigious honor as being a high impact school. Again, a huge shout out to all of our staff, families, and students at the middle school. Lastly, the final piece of great news for our administrative team in our district, our athletic director, Mr. Tom Schofield, has been recognized by the WIAA as District 2 Athletic Director of the Year. So congratulations, Mr. Schofield, on this well-deserved honor. He will be recognized officially or formally at the WIAA conference, I believe, in November. So there will be more to come. So lots to celebrate in the Antigo School District.
I don't think that Mr. Schofield is here, but let's give a congratulatory applause for Mr. Schofield and this great accomplishment. Trina, you can make sure that he heard that. Okay, moving on to item number 4, board.
Question.
Oh, sure. Sorry, JD.
Glenda, can we talk about why we didn't put the CTE program on the agenda? I know I requested it after George emailed and said he wasn't being allowed to public comment, since you can only public comment now on something that's on the agenda. And I know Sarah also emailed and asked before the meeting was posted.
I was also confused why it couldn't be on the agenda.
JD, did you ask why it wasn't put on the agenda?
Yeah, I just thought it might have saved us a lot of trouble.
I'm having trouble hearing.
Can we talk about why we didn't put it on the agenda? I think we probably should have, but.
So CPE and staffing is operational, so all of those items were board approved.
Dr. Bardo, I heard you saying something over there. Can you chime in there, please, sir?
Oh, this is going to be loved. The school board does not do the day-to-day operations. For example, we don't decide the schedule at the high school. We don't decide the bell schedule at the middle school. There are certain things that boards are supposed to do, and actually, one of the speakers tonight talked about policy, and but our chief role is to not only look after the budget, but to hire or fire the superintendent of a school district. That's our role. So on a day-to-day thing in all school districts, and I was a superintendent down at Whitburn for 17 years. Day to day, the administrator and their team, which includes the business and all the people at Dorr Street and all the principals. That's considered the administration. They're hired by technically the superintendent. So most things come back to a school board from the person that the school board has hired. So on a day-to-day basis, I will tell you, all 9 of us do not know what is going on every day. We get our information from the administration. That's how it works. And you may not understand that, I'm just being honest.
We'll have no comments from the public, please.
So, that's the way it works. As I told my board members back when I was at Whitburn, it's not a 24-hour job. The only time I have power, and the rest of this group, the only time we have power is when Mr. Pyatt does the gavel. And we have no power when the gavel comes down at the end of the meeting. And that's the truth.
No questions. 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 We'll hold for recess for 5 minutes.
That is exactly what you want to know.
Okay, we will. Okay, we'll come back to order, and we are on item F. And JD, your question that was on the table, Dr. Bardo answered that question for you.
I was hoping, right, because the way we set the agenda is typically we ask the president to put it on. And I guess I was probably late after your meeting. I didn't realize that, but that was when George called me, that morning and said he'd been trying to get to be able to talk. But when he expressed the community displeasure about the direction of the program, I thought, geez, we should put this on in case so we can potentially change our mind. We're trying to make Mike happier. What's my...
I'll defer back to Dr. Bardo. It is not the prerogative of the board to set the classes. That's the administration. Okay?
Right, but we're still we're the feedback group for the county, or, for the county. So they, if they want to talk, it's hard not to let them. It was a weird thing, because there was 10 years ago, this was the policy. If the item wasn't on the agenda, you couldn't talk about it. Then when Andy was president, he switched it. You could come talk about anything. And then a couple years ago, we switched it back. It's just not normally, it doesn't normally come up, but I never liked the policy either.
Kristen?
I feel we have the policy in place as to how to get something on the agenda. This seemed to be a very quick turnaround. I do feel like this is a committee issue. At the general board meetings, we discuss the action that comes out of the committee. I'm not sure what committee exactly that would place in, curriculum and instruction, but the more of the informative situations versus something that we're voting on happen at a committee level, not the general board meeting. So in my opinion, it would be something that should be placed in committee, not the board meeting.
Correct.
Right, that sounds reasonable to me. It just sounded like we always are, slow. So I don't know, we could try to put it on the next curriculum and instruction committee meeting. I don't know if we could convince Mike to come, if that's too late before he gets another job, but I don't know.
We're not to speak about certain personnel, but if this isn't a personnel issue, this is a program issue. So if it's the CTE program of concern, then it is the CTE program of which we need to discuss. In my opinion.
Item number 4, board action. Letter A, resolution awarding the sale of $20 million general obligation school building and facility improvement bonds, Series 2025. I will be looking for a motion.
I move to approve a resolution awarding the sale of $20 million of general obligation school building and facility improvement bond, Series 2025, as presented.
Dr. Bardo made the motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
At this time, no. I think Eric Koss is here, who's our financial advisor. He can speak to this, and if needed, Kelly.
Thank you, Eric, for being with us tonight.
My pleasure. I think you guys all have a copy of the presentation that I'm going to run through.
Okay.
Just wanted to walk through the highlights. I'm very happy with the results. So earlier today at 10 a.m., we received competitive bids for the $20 million issuance. This is the second issuance related to the November of 2024 referendum. If you recall, last December, we issued the first $14 million, and really the strategy around that was to allow the school district to invest those funds to gain more opportunity within the proceeds account to help hedge against, tariffs. Unfortunately, we weren't thinking about that at that point in time, but some of the unknown that inevitably comes from large construction projects. So in the presentation, the first slide is really just a history of interest rates that we track in the municipal market. So when you're issuing tax-exempt debt, we're able to track deals that happen in the market. And so what you're looking at is from January of 2024 all the way through today. What you'll notice, or what jumps out at me, is the large spike that happened in April. So that was related to a lot of unknowns coming through at the federal level. So tariffs was one of the major policy changes that were coming forward, and the markets reacted unfavorably to that. You see more recently that it's certainly declined. I think that is also related to the pause on tariffs at the federal level and some of the other policies as the market understands them and gravitates towards how they're going to react. So in comparison to where rates were in April, we're certainly in a more favorable environment, which we're going to talk about the results here in a moment. So like I said, we did receive bids earlier today. We were very happy we received a total of 8 bids, which I think speaks to the credit quality of not only the state of Wisconsin, but specifically the Antigo Unified School District. And the final bidder that's being recommended, is Mesro Financial at a 4.52% interest rate. Some more of the highlights, I'm not going to really walk through too much detail, but the debt service schedule that's in the packet is the detailed principal and interest that happens every year. So the principal is paid on an annual basis, and the interest is paid semi-annually. And so that schedule is shown there. It'll become a little bit more clear as we talk about the full financial picture, and I highlight the levy capacity needs for the borrowings as well. So on the next slide, titled Financing Plan, you'll see the first $14 million that has already been issued is structured. A large principal payment that was paid originally to save long-term interest. The highlighted blue is what's called callable debt. So when we do issue, we put in something called a call feature, which allows future flexibility for school boards to refinance the debt if interest rates are lower at that point in time, or also you can pay back investors early without any penalty. So there is another strategy that will be available to future boards to help downsize the long-term interest expense related to the debt issuance. In the middle column is the final recommendation to support the resolution for your consideration this evening and the structure associated with it. Again, you'll see the blue callable there. If you get all the way over to the right, one of the key things that we wanted to accomplish was to help manage the overall levy for the school district. And so last fall, a levy was $2.8 million. As we talked about, when state aid comes into the picture, it doesn't come in until the next year. So you have to incur the expense and pay that first principal and interest for $2.8 million, and then we start gaining momentum to those returns that we talked very openly pre-referendum about from the state of Wisconsin. And so in comparison, you'll notice two numbers. Last fall, the levy was $2.876 million. We project with state aid, again, it's still a little bit up in the air with the state budget, but the levy necessary to repay next year would be $1.8 million, or almost $1 million less. So there provide some flexibility to help the school district manage their levy long-term. And I think at its high point, you'll see, notice all the way down, once we do finalize the last issuance, which is currently projected for 2026, that the long-term levy would be around $2.1 to $2 million. Finally, just some of the key financing terms that are part of your consideration on the resolution. So this is a $20 million GO debt issuance backed by the full faith and credit of your tax base. It is aligned to the $54 million capital referendum approved on November 5th of 2024. The closing date, if approved, would be July 7th. So that closing date is the date that funds are deposited into the account of the school district and able to be utilized from an investment standpoint as well as covering costs. Principal maturities, it is a 20-year issue, so the first principal would be due March 1st of '26. And if no refundings or prepayments were to happen, it would be retired on March 1st, 2045. The first interest payment is also March 1st of 2026. So the levy for the first time for these debt payments would come this November for your consideration. The call date, as I talked a little bit about, is March 1st, 2034. The credit rating maintains stable at an A+, which is good, and the long-term stability was talked about in the report. And then, like I said earlier, the final true interest cost, or TIC, was 4.52%. So with that, I'd pause and answer any questions if there are any.
I'm not 100% sure I understood all that, but can you use fund balance? When you said we have to pay, before we get state aided, we have to pay the first $1 million out of the general fund?
Yeah.
Can we use fund balance to do that?
Sure. So let me elaborate on my point. So state aid is a reimbursement. And so you have to incur an expense, pay something, pay a bill, and then the following year, the state, through their equalization aid formula, calculates how much state aid you receive. And so one of the components that we really focused on is the district has been very low spending and hasn't qualified for the maximum amount of state aid. So when we issued the debt last December, we scheduled a principal and interest payment for the 24-25 fiscal year, the one that we're just finishing on June 30th of 2025. And so by incurring that expense, we're qualifying for the state aid next year. So that offset happens the year after, not the year you levy the funds, unfortunately. So it's a little bit of playing catch-up in order for us to create stability in your levy long-term. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of.
And technically, did I hear 2045?
Correct.
When we make that last payment, the following year, this district will get state aided from the state on what they spent, which will just be bonus money.
Right, and you won't have a payment that year.
Correct.
Correct.
When we did our revenue projections, were we counting on the $200 every year for 400 years or whatever it is? So that's built in, I didn't know if that was done with the Supreme Court when we did our budget.
It was, but, the biennium budget isn't passed yet, so anything can really happen.
Which is one of the reasons in talking with Kelly and Glenda that we wanted to strategically drop the required Fund 39 levy when we bring in aid to provide some flexibility when that 325 starts coming, that taxes aren't continually rising. So it was a thoughtful approach to help manage the unknown of the state budget, but planning for the 325 continuing.
What's Fund 39 again?
Sorry, it's the levy associated with repaying the debt that was approved by the referendum.
Are there any other questions or comments for Eric?
4.5 was about what you expected, huh?
Correct.
We did it.
I think pre-referendum, we were assuming 4.75. Your first issue, as you can see on there, was just over 4, but with the rates rising a little bit, we were very happy at the timing, just as rates kind of came down. And we really got in before the next iteration of the tariff conversation comes back after the 90-day pause. So it was kind of a window that we were targeting with the administration.
Who's the purchaser? Is it an insurance company or is it?
So what these bidders are, which are on that third slide, are what's called underwriters. So they have networks of banks, mutual funds, private investors that they cobble together. And each of these actual principal maturities, like the 1.6 million the first year, could be owned by 50 different investors that they work with. So they find all of these people and bring them to the table and create the lowest interest rate opportunity. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hearing no other questions or comments of the presentation from Eric, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? Vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Thank you, Eric. Letter B, consideration of RFP food service contract proposal. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move to approve Chartwells to be the food service management company for the Unified School District of Antigo beginning 7/1/2025.
Motion has been made by Bobby. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
I do not.
Okay. Jake is here to answer any questions that we may have about this contract. Are there any other questions or comments? Abby, go ahead.
Yep. How many staff, if any, would be losing hours or benefits switching to this?
So actually, we do have Chartwells here today. They are here. Tim Leary and Janelle Schultz are here to probably better answer the questions for you. So
perfect.
All of them come down and they can answer probably all of your questions much better than I can.
Thank you, Jake. I didn't realize that you were present with us tonight, but thank you for being here.
Absolutely. So I'm Janelle Schultz. I'm the area director for Chartwells in Wisconsin. This is Tim Leary. So to answer your question, Abby, we plan to retain all of the food service associates at their current schedule, rate of pay and everything that we had discussed with Jake and everything. As far as benefits, we do also have it in our contract for a no gap coverage. So the day that their insurance benefits expire at the district, they pick up that very same day with Chartwells, so they don't have a gap in coverage at all.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Chartwells while they are at the microphone? Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
Okay, the voting device is now open for the motion on the floor to approve Chartwells to be the food service management company. Would anyone like to change their vote? Seeing none, the vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter C, consideration of 2025-2026 student Chromebook. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move to approve the bid from CDW in the amount of $122,600 for the 25-26 student Chromebooks.
Motion has been made by Kristen. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Kesha was happy with the price. We're doing a couple changes to help our younger learners with the transition to using the Chromebooks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments of the motion on the floor? Hearing no questions or comments of the motion on the floor, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter D, consideration of 2025-2026 preliminary budget. I will be looking for a motion.
I move to approve a $1 per hour increase to support staff pay rates and changes to the support staff pay scale as presented for the 25.
We are not there. We are on letter D.
All right, then I don't know enough to do that one.
You'll do it next time.
I will do the next one. I'm going to skip.
I will be looking for a motion for letter D, consideration of 25-26 preliminary budget.
I move to approve the 25-26 preliminary budget.
Motion has been made by Catherine. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Only that this is preliminary. Nothing has been finalized just yet.
Okay. Any questions or comments of the preliminary budget for 2025-2026?
Kelly, so you had to find an extra $1 million that you won't have to find next year? That was the moral of the story?
I'm going to
to try to answer that question. So I had to try to find $1 million. Are you talking
The part that we're not getting state aided on, I guess, I didn't, you know, I didn't follow the timelines exactly, but if, you're right, because if we had a hard time giving teacher raises, I didn't know if it was because we had to find another $1 million or if that was not correct.
So every year we look at, we look at what our enrollment is and what we project it to be, because that's what your enrollment or your revenue is based on. So when you have inflation with all of your bus contracts, all of your contracts for your software, your curriculum, all of those pieces, including your health insurance increase, your salary increases for staff members, all of those pieces increase every year. And one of the pieces in Anago, much like many districts, is that we have declining enrollment. So if you have declining enrollment, you have less of a revenue limit. Obviously, those numbers don't fully come in until you have third Friday of September, and then again in January. And we actually don't get an actual revenue limit until October from the state. So our projections are that, yes, we're going to have less revenue with increased expenditures, so that is why we follow the fiscal practices of looking at what our enrollment is going to be to determine where we need to go with expenditures, as well as all of the increases that we do know we're having in every area of the budget.
How much money were we trying to put in Fund 46 this year?
We look at budgeting for a balanced budget, and then we look at what our surplus is going to be based on many different pieces. We can't predict what every single expenditure is going to come in at, but we budget in a very conservative model in which we anticipate more expenditures rather than predicting and planning for more revenue. So that's what I mean by conservative, is that we are looking at worst case scenario for expenditures rather than best case scenario for revenues. And then when we come in with a surplus at the end, if we don't have planned expenditures, then we would move that over to Fund 46.
When do we usually do that, though?
July.
July.
Yep. So right now, we're actually going through June 30th is the end of our fiscal year, so we aren't even through that yet. And then in July, by July 30th, that has to be approved by the board. So at July 14th meeting, we would have that on our agenda. We're currently in the auditing process as well. They just came today, and then again in July. So that would be coming to the July board meeting.
Just because when we got the new teacher salary schedules, I thought we said that pretty much everybody was guaranteed to be better off than they were on the old one.
And they were.
Unless they didn't get a raise because they got written up.
So I'm going to speak to preliminary budget, which is the topic on the agenda, and not personnel issues or the policy in place in the handbook.
I just didn't know if there was not enough money, and that's why we had to be so strict, or if we
No,
were just...
not at all. No, we would never plan on staff not getting a raise for a salary increase to balance the budget. So no, that is not accurate.
Okay, so if we changed our minds, how much money do we have available?
Changed your mind on?
If we went and gave the staff who didn't get a raise, because we have lots of unhappy teachers.
JD, you'd have to have that conversation with Kelly so it could be put before a committee and then brought back to the board, because we are dealing with a preliminary budget. And it can be if we go through the process.
And that would be the finance committee?
Yes, sir.
Who's the chair of that right now? Dave?
Catherine is.
Catherine?
Dave, isn't it?
We will see to it that this discussion goes on to the finance committee, because I'm presuming that's where you would like to go with the discussion. Okay. Are there any other questions regarding the motion of approving the preliminary budget? And I will echo Catherine's voice in saying that this is extremely preliminary, and we will know more hard numbers in October. All right. Hearing no other questions or discussion, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter E, consideration of 2025-2026 support staff pay scale.
Sure.
Abby.
I move to approve a $1 per hour increase to support staff pay rates and changes to the support staff pay scale as presented for the 25-26 school year.
Motion has been made by Abby. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
I just want to say that these people deserve more than that, but I'm super happy we're giving them $1.
Agreed. Any other questions or comments of the motion on the floor? Hearing no questions or comments, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter F, consideration of Fortinet renewal. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move to approve the bid from Camera Corner in the amount of $14,290 for the 25-26 Fortinet renewal.
Motion has been made by Kristen. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Nope, again, I'd like to thank Kesha for her wonderful negotiation skills and getting lower prices than even we've had in the past.
Any questions or comments of the motion on the floor? All right, your voting device is now open for the motion on the floor. Would anyone like to change their vote? And the voting is closed, and the motion passes. Letter G, consideration of CISA 9 contract. I will be looking for a motion.
So this contract,
I need a motion first before we can discuss.
I make a motion to approve it.
You make a motion to approve the 25-26 CISA 9 contract in the amount of $583,359 as presented?
Yes.
Thank you, Scott. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I just see this as signed before we vote on it. That's normal?
Yes, sir, it is.
And then the amendments just happen?
We haven't signed it, Scott. They have signed it.
Yes, they've signed it, but.
They've signed it?
Yes, Kristen,
Right.
Kristen and I have not signed it.
I got that. So they have already signed this, so we have consulted with them, and they're good with this?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. That is standard procedure each year.
Any questions of the CISA 9 shared contract
I have a
service?
question.
Bobby?
I'm just curious about the occupational therapy piece that was mentioned during public comment and why that's not included on the CISA contract?
Because we have hired our own in-house occupational therapist.
And that position being one person is significant for our,
Correct, because our special education service numbers have decreased, so we do not have as many needs. And during the interview with this OT, there was conversation around co-serving. So there are different models that can be used with a variety of different special education services.
okay, and would that also address the issues regarding caseload size? And how to make up those occupational hours that have been missed?
So caseload sizes vary depending upon what is required. So if more than just case management. It's more than just a number.
Do you think we should just get one from CISA 9 also, so we can make up the minutes faster? Or is it not available?
Again, that's operational. And we are following what we need to. And the reason that the contract is including 3 speech people and coming to the board tonight for approval is so that we can secure the number of staff we need. And our CISAs are also struggling to have enough staff to support the needs of the districts.
Abby, go ahead.
Will the speech and language teachers in the school psychs be virtual or in person that CISA is providing us?
So they will, we have some of them that will do both. Some will come on site to do evaluations, and the services, the speech therapy itself could be, most often is provided virtually.
And CISA has enough school psychs and speech people to give us what we need? Okay. And are we still trying to hire one on weekend if we, if a miracle happens and?
Correct. We do have it posted, I believe, and we can be flexible with CISA 9. If we were to find someone, we could then say, we don't need this person. CISA's very flexible.
Okay, thank you. Not related to SPED at all, but are we continuing with the other CISA 9 programs, like the new teacher things, the instructional technology consortiums, the math consortiums that we've offered to our staff in the past?
As part of budget cuts, we have limited based on what work we're doing with Solution Tree, and main focus is with our continuous school improvement with the elementary. So I know Mrs. Mushak uses the CISA 4 E-rate services, but we've really narrowed our focus to some specific items in our district so that we're working on getting good at a few things and not just skimming the surface of many.
Okay.
Does CISA payment come from the general fund, or does it come from, sort of like the Solution Tree comes from the, whatever that money is we have to use on, Fund 27, that we have to use on that?
I'm going to defer part of that to Mrs. Fosbinder, but it comes from a variety, which I know some of the special ed funding comes from the general fund.
Yes, there's a variety of different funds that we can use. We have to follow all of those strict guidelines as to what those funds can be used for and work strategically to ensure that what the item is on that contract directly aligns. There's a lot of different pieces that go into Fund 27, many different grants that are federal and state. So we get as creative as we possibly can while following those guidelines to ensure that we not only maximize all of the different reimbursements that we can get with Fund 27, there's many different complex rules with that. And so long and short of it is, if you see special ed, it comes from Fund 27. It doesn't necessarily mean that it would come from a federal grant or from your Fund 27 transfer from Fund 10, because essentially Fund 10 funds Fund 27. If that is clear as mud for you. But essentially, we are very strategic with how we can get the most reimbursement for the pieces that are on not only this contract, but all of the rest. So it might come through flow through, it might come through the part of Fund 27 that gets transferred from Fund 10. We also have different, like you had stated, different titles or different state grants that might be able to use to fund that. But once all of our grants are expended as maximized as we possibly can, everything would have to come from Fund 10.
Any other questions or comments of the motion on the floor? Hearing no questions or comments, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? Vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter H, report of donations. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I would like to make a motion to accept the June 25 donations, Co-Managed Cares, in the amount of $1,000 for Project Adam, and Jack Lake Silent Sports Association, $250 for School Forest.
Motion has been made by Kristen. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, as always, to our generous donors.
And Project Adam is purchasing 6 infant mannequins for the CPR certification course that all of our staff has to go through. Any other questions or comments of the report of donations? Okay, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter I will be looking for a motion of the report of accepting the resignations and retirements. Correct, JD? Those two, resignations and retirements. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the resignations and retirements as presented.
Motion has been made by Scott. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Just that there's a lot of things that a lot of people, this board experience has been an eye-opener. It's a learning experience. And there's a lot of things that go on that people don't know about until you actually get involved. And I guess that's all I want to say right now.
Thank you, Scott. Questions or comments of the motion on the floor to accept the resignations and retirements as reported? Abby?
Well, first of all, I would like to commend all of the people that spoke about the resignations. I wish I would have had enough guts to do it a year ago, but I didn't. So I'm here. On this list, there are 17 people since May 27th, since the deadline of May 27th. Of those 17 people, 12 have more than 5 years experience. That means that we put a lot of resources and time into these people, and we're really hoping that they would stay. We can't afford to lose this many teachers. We can't. We still have not filled vacancies left from last year's resignations, and our kids are not able to take those classes. My own child, Spanish teacher for 19 years, cannot take Spanish. He doesn't want to, but still, he can't, even if he did. And that's definitely just one example. We can't do this. We can't keep doing this. Something is wrong, something is broken, and it needs to be fixed. The board needs to step in and help with the administration. Somebody said it's a shared responsibility. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. We need to be better, or we're not going to have any teachers to teach our kids.
Thank you, Abby. Any other questions or comments? JD?
I don't know, we obviously, like Dave said before, are not the administrator, so we don't see the day-to-day, we don't see the evaluations. We basically hear from the superintendent, and then we hear from the public. So we're in a bad position to try to judge staff performance. But I don't know, I just feel like we need to treat the staff better. We're being too strict, we're making too many people too unhappy. I know we said we want to try to improve education, but I'm not sure we're doing it the right way.
You can't
Thank you,
improve it
JD.
without teachers.
Any other board member like to speak on the motion on the floor?
I would just agree with JD in saying that I think it's critical that we have so many unhappy staff and that it definitely needs to be addressed.
Yes, we need to try harder. We need to apologize. We need to do something.
Any other board member like to speak who has not spoken on the motion on the floor? Any other board members like to speak? Okay, the motion on the floor is to accept the report of the resignations and retirements. The voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Moving on to item 5, closed session. Consideration of a motion to adjourn into closed session under 19.851C. Consideration employment. New hires was taken up in number 2. New hires was added on to number 2. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Megan. Consideration, employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, a discussion and possible action on administrator's contact. Before we take a roll call vote, I'll wait for the commotion to subside. I'm sorry? I'm waiting until the commotion ends of people leaving. Okay, I will entertain the motion of going into closed session.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Bobby. Is there a second for this motion?
I'll second.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Deanna, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Bardo?
Yes.
Bobby Braun?
Yes.
Jill Maddick Nelson? Kristen Matt-Miller?
Yes.
Scott Peterson?
Yes.
Catherine Solon?
Yes.
Abby Maddick?
Yes.
JD Schrader?
Yes.
Danny Pyatt?
Yes. We are now in closed session.